Hello and welcome to Old Lang Schmooze, an Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre podcast. I'm Ella.
And I'm David.
And today we're presenting the Fringe Open Day Schmooze. The Open Day is put on to showcase performances from Fringe Festival performers whose acts involve Jewish themes, Jewish stories, and sometimes just good old Jewish comedy. At the Open Day, Hannah Handelman, the Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre administrator, and I went around and asked some of the audience members what they thought of the Open Day, and most of all, what they were excited to see in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year. So what did you think of this year's Fringe Open Day so far?
Very, very enjoyable, very interesting. I think it gives a good taste of what the festival is actually all about. And from the Jewish point of view, I think it's great to see all these things that would be of interest to Jewish people in one place at one time. It's a very clever idea, and I think it's actually ingenious the way it's been done, and I'm very impressed.
I thought it was great. It was entertaining, diverse. It was always something new and different. I had hoped to see something of this group, Our Little Secret, but I was speaking to the people involved. I know they hadn't arranged beforehand, but I'm planning to see that. And plus this one too, I thought it was a bit shocking perhaps for some of the older, perhaps more conservative people, but I think it's very relevant and interesting. And I just enjoyed the music I don't come regularly to the shul. I am Jewish. I'm American. I live in Edinburgh, but I don't have a lot to do with the congregation, or I don't come to shul or anything. But I consider myself Jewish and always want to support things that are going on.
It's been totally interesting. I love all these different various Jewish themed shows. It's dramatic. It's funny. Who else wouldn't want to see that?
It's been really good. I haven't been to a lot of Fringe shows, so it's nice to see a lot in a short amount of time. It's really hard with so many shows to know what you want to go out and see. So there's definitely one or two that I'm like, oh, I got to actually go see the full thing. And that's nice to know because sometimes it's overwhelming.
We really enjoyed it. I really want to go and see the show with the twins who are playing the East End Essex. I want to go and see that one. I want to go and see the two women who have got their own shows individually. They're both very observant, so they don't perform on Shabbat. I want to go and see them. And I want to go and see, I think it's the one about text messages.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go and see that. Yeah, really to go and see that, yeah.
So what did you think of today's Open Day?
It was wonderful. The drama was extraordinary. And that's what I do better than the music. But it was all very, very entertaining, and I'm glad I came.
It's always a wonderful yearly event, and we're very proud of our city, our Jewish connections here that do this, and it's been a very successful afternoon. And we look forward to the next one. Next year, all being well, Katie?
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a real event. Well done. So I'm actually with Adrian Harris, and Adrian and I both co-curate and present the Open Day. And usually after it, just like now, we have a little chat about how it's gone and what we've enjoyed, both at the Open Day and in the Fringe. So Adrian, highlights?
Highlights. Well, I think it was a really great session that we ran. I was very pleased with it, and pleased as ever with the variety of artists and performances we were able to present. I was really pleased that we got an email from a young Israeli director, writer, producer called Eli Zuzowski, who was presenting a show at the Fringe called Long Distance. And I went to see that show early in the run and really, really enjoyed it. And I was delighted that they all agreed to come along to the Open Day. It's a show, I suppose, a very contemporary love affair, really. It's a queer love affair, and it's conducted by text. and it just charts the relationship over a period of time, and how the two young people involved in this find their way through it. So yeah, that was a kind of hidden gem for me.
It went down very well at the open day. The two performers were recent graduates of RADA, Jonathan Rubin and Lewis Merrilees. I thought they acquitted themselves very well.
Absolutely. And I had a really good discussion with Lewis after seeing the show. And I think his head was still in a bit of a spin, to be honest. As he said, 3 weeks ago they were at RADA, and now they were performing at the Fringe.
Another really great play that we had was Revenge After the Lavoya by Nick Kassenbaum. Did you enjoy that?
I did, yes. I went to see it quite early in the run, and it's an absolutely outrageous and outrageously wonderful piece of theatre. I was there with another Jewish friend, and we were making all sorts of judgments, I suppose, but there's lots of Yiddish in the show, lots of Yiddish swearing in the show. And we were wondering, how are people making sense of this who are not Jewish? But they were, because they were having a fantastic time and just laughing riotously at the goings on stage. I thought it was a great show. And I think you really enjoyed it as well, didn't you, David?
Yes, I've seen a couple of shows by Nick Kassenbaum before at the Fringe, and he's a great writer. He's also a great performer, although he wasn't in this himself. It was just one actress and one actor, Gemma Barnett and Dylan Corbett Bader. Just to explain what the show's all about, the two siblings, they're at their grandfather's Shiva after he's died, and their uncle, it's all set in the East End of London, and this uncle tries to involve them in a plot to kidnap Jeremy Corbyn. And from there on, it's a sort of madcap farce, which is fast and furious. And I was kind of more worried about the pace of the show going over some people's heads in the audience, but people really loved it, including myself. And at the open day, Gemma and Dylan did an extract, and it seemed to go down really well. So I was pleased with that.
Yeah, and we mustn't forget the secret third performer, which was the set of steps standing in for Jeremy Corbyn.
That's right. And the steps played their part very well, very convincing.
Absolutely.
I think the great thing about the Fringe, and indeed the open day, is the range of styles and performances. And again, on the drama side of things, there's often one-person shows. And one of the shows that I really enjoyed and was featured at the open day was by an American, a New York actress, writer called Jane Elias. And after the Fringe, I was able to catch up with Jane and ask her a bit about her show.
Jane, it's lovely to talk to you. You've just spent a month at the Fringe. Can you tell us a bit about the show you've been performing?
Yes, the show is called Do This One Thing For Me. It's a solo piece that I wrote as an exploration of my relationship with my father, Benny, who was originally from Greece and was a Holocaust survivor. So the play is looking at how his experience during the war informed our relationship and also my way of moving through the world and my experience as a descendant of a survivor.
Jane, what inspired you to write this show, and has it taken a while to get the show together?
Yes, the impulse to write it really grew strong after my dad passed away, which was at the end of 2010. And with his passing, I became more acutely aware of the fact that firsthand accounts of what happened during the Holocaust were becoming few and far between, and that it was that responsibility would now fall to me and the subsequent generations to keep those stories alive. So that was a big part of it. And also, after he passed, I began looking more closely at how his experiences informed my own life and the way I saw things. And I just became more curious about how those things were connected. So I was fortunate enough to have footage of his Shoah Foundation interview, which he had done in 1995. And the text of that testimony was what I used in sections of my play where he's speaking on camera, so to speak, in the play, although I'm performing it, but it's his words.
So it must be quite an emotional experience to perform a show that's based on your own experiences and that of your late father's.
It is. This is an interesting experience because I've noticed also in previous incarnations of the play when we've done it in New York that while the run is going on, I don't really feel so much of the emotional weight of it as far as the toll it takes on me. Because while I'm performing it, it's a joyful experience. I feel like I'm bringing my dad back to life. I'm able to share him with more people. It's only after the fact that I feel it. It's like anything else, when you stop moving and then you feel tired. So today, the first day after the end of the festival, I'm starting to feel the cumulative effect of carrying this for not just the last month of the festival, but we've been planning it for the last almost year. So, but it's a fatigue that I don't mind.
Why Edinburgh? Why bring a show to Edinburgh when you've got lots of theatres in New York? What's the big attraction about coming to the Edinburgh Fringe?
Well, back when I first was developing this piece, there were a number of classmates of mine, because I was working on this in a solo show writing workshop, who were bringing their shows to Edinburgh. And I don't know, it was something that was in the air. A lot of people were bringing their shows. I think at that moment too, solo shows were having a bit of a renaissance. And I had heard so many great things about the festival. We don't really, maybe surprisingly, have something like that in New York on such an international scale and on such a large scale. So just the prospect of being part of something like that was exciting to me. And also, given the themes of the play, I thought it would be a good thing to bring it across the pond and introduce it to audiences who have a different perspective. And as I've learned, especially because this is dealing with the events of World War II, people based in the UK and Europe have a much closer connection, generally speaking, to that period of time.
So how's it gone? How's the past month gone for you?
It's gone very well. I mean, I don't have a point of comparison as far as Fringe experience because it's my first time doing Edinburgh, but we were very happy with our venue, which was Bedlam Theatre, which is a beautiful old church, especially having been in several of the other venues at the Fringe, seeing other shows over the course of the month. I was really happy that we were in this kind of big open space, especially since the piece itself is very spare and the only technical element is the lighting design, which Bedlam was able to give us some flexibility with that. So in that respect, we were very happy. We had really nice audiences, steady over the course of the 4 weeks, roughly like between 30 and 50 people, which I was very happy about because this is a very quiet show. It's not a big comedy that's going to draw late night crowds kind of thing. So I wasn't sure about how we were going to attract audience, but we had a steady audience every day. I was very pleased with that. And I learned a lot for myself as a performer doing the show every day.
So one of the things about the open day that we particularly like, and was one of the aims, was that we get to present a lot of Jewish themed productions and shows. And certainly the audiences that come to the open day, which are a mixture of people from Edinburgh and much further afield, and both Jewish and of all faiths and none, is that they enjoy that feeling of coming together. And not only the performances, but the food. And we always have a break for refreshments, don't we, Adrian?
We do, yeah, and you have to say that the catering team at the Edinburgh Hebrew congregation, the synagogue where we hold the open day, they do such a fantastic job on the food, both in terms of quantity and quality, and meeting all needs. I'm always amazed that amidst it all, there are plates that are labeled vegan, plates that are labeled vegetarian, plates that are labeled gluten-free. So whatever your requirements, dietary requirements are, they are met by that team who are just fantastic.
Yes, and I know that in the past, when I was the kind of sole presenter in the kitchen, there was also a plate marked for David in case they ran out of food. But usually I was too busy to actually get to it till the end.
Well, I can understand that.
I know we have disappeared. But, again, one of the aims of the open day from the beginning was to have a place during the Fringe when Jewish performers could come together, and also performers from other faiths and none who were performing Jewish-themed shows. But sometimes, depending on what's going on in the world, and particularly this year, it felt like a very good place for Jewish performers to come together and enjoy some time together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were both aware of the brilliant work that Rachel Krieger had done actually before the Fringe started. Rachel, as most people will know, has been a regular at the Open Day for a number of years, a regular performer at the Fringe. And Rachel's Jewish identity is part of her identity as a performer. And as you say, it's been a really tough year for performers whose Jewish identity is up front. And I think we were all a little bit sort of depressed, I suppose, to hear Rachel tell us from the stage when she was talking about her show, about how she had lost bookings this year because she identifies as a Jewish performer, and it was just much harder this year to get bookings, and I think that was really sad to hear that. And similarly, Eli Zuzowski from the Long Distance Company, Eli is Israeli, but is a very international figure. And when Eli was being interviewed, he made the very telling remark that when he walked into the synagogue hall, it was the first time he'd felt at home, his words, the first time he'd felt at home since he'd come to Edinburgh. And again, I thought that was a very powerful statement on his part, very moving as well. So it is great. I think, whatever your politics, I think people are coming together because they're looking for a sense of solidarity, at what is a really difficult time, whether you're a performer or an audience member. Just spending a bit of time with other Jews actually is not a bad thing.
Absolutely. And, have said that, Jewish themed productions are always popular at the festival, just as other productions from other cultures. And I think that was something, with Revenge After the Lavoya, apart from its Jewish theme, was just a great piece of physical theatre and, farce, I suppose, and went down really well. So well, it won a Fringe First Award, which was great.
which was fantastic and well deserved, absolutely well deserved.
So again, one of the things that I enjoy about Fringe and is reflected in the open day is the range and variety of material to enjoy, including music. And we are very lucky that Phil Alexander took part in the open day with his trio, the Firelight Trio.
Yeah, so lucky. And Phil is an absolutely wonderful musician and has done so much for putting Jewish music in front of the Scottish public. And with the Firelight Trio, we were really lucky. The other two members of the trio, Gavin Marwick, is a superb fiddle player, and Ruth Morris plays the nickel harper, which is a very unusual looking and sounding instrument, and created a great deal of interest on the day. And Ruth very kindly, at the end of the open day, kind of ran a little informal workshop because there were so many people who wanted to get a closer look at her nickel harper. So that was kind of like an added bonus. But they were fantastic, producing this wonderful mix of Scottish and Central European music that really, I think, delighted the audience.
Absolutely. And another show we had represented at the open day was a show called I Wish My Life Were a Musical, which was created and written by Alexander S. Bermange. And again, after the Fringe, I got in touch with Alexander and we had a chat about how it all gone. Alexander, you've just finished a long run at the Fringe in Edinburgh. Perhaps we could start with you just telling us what your show was all about.
With pleasure. My show, at least the show of which I'm the writer, I should say, is called I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical. And it's a comedic musical review that reveals everything you could want to know about being a musical theatre performer, if only there were any who would admit it. Plus everything about the devotees, detractors, and disruptors they perform to.
And this is a show that I think you've been doing for a while, but it changes from time to time. Is that right?
That's correct. It first surfaced in London in 2018, and since then it's had 3 further London seasons, 4 Edinburgh seasons, seasons in South Korea, Switzerland, Canada, and we're currently in the middle of a tour of the UK and Ireland.
Great. And just to get some more information for people that maybe weren't at our open day, the show is performed by 4 wonderful singers and dancers. And through the show, they do various musical numbers that are kind of different characters that you might find performing a musical. Can you give us an example of some of the themes of the songs?
Yes, of course. I mean, basically, the show takes a chronological caper through the lives of musical theatre performers, starting with the wide-eyed drama student and progressing all the way through to the brattish diva or the past it chorus member or the bitter has-been. And some of the songs encompass the awful auditions, or the exhausting dance routines, or the onstage kisses between warring co-stars, or the celebrities who can't sing, who get cast in shows just because they're famous, or their understudies who patiently wait backstage praying that those celebrities will get ill or die so they get a chance to go on.
The singers that you have in the show, they seemed, fantastically skilled. But you also got them to do things which a lesser singer might do, like sing out of tune and things. So is that a very difficult thing to learn to do or to rehearse to do?
Yeah, totally. I mean, as you say, and yes, certainly one of the songs, the song which we had the great privilege of performing at your open day, does require the performer to be the aforementioned celebrity who gets cast in a musical just because they're famous, not because they have any discernible talent. And yes, as you observed, our performers have to be skilled singers, dancers, actors, and also very, very funny. And certainly it does require a great deal of craft to be able to sing deliberately sharp or flat, or put the stress on the wrong syllable of a word, And so, yes, that song in particular, and many of the others, do require a great mastery, in order to put over. Because I suppose if you've had it drilled into you your whole career to sing in tune and sing in rhythm and put the stresses on the right syllables, then to suddenly be told to do the exact opposite, is quite a challenge.
Thank you very much, Alexander.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure.
After the Fringe, I caught up with another performer who was performing a show of Jewish cultural interest. That was Amy Lever. Amy couldn't be at the open day, but we had a chat about how her show came about and what it involved.
So I'm talking to Amy Lever, who has been performing a one-person play at the Fringe called Lost Girl. Amy, do you want to tell us a little bit about the play?
Sure. So the play is about a girl who's just finished high school and she doesn't really know what to do with her life. She's a bit of a girl failure, I guess. She accidentally uncovers a secret that her Egyptian Jewish grandfather's been hiding. And it's kind of about her coming of age through learning about her Jewish Arab heritage. And it is fictional, but a lot of the kind of historical events and the family history in the play is inspired by my own family history and research that I did.
And did it take you a long time to research and write?
Yeah, I think the largest portion of time probably was spent on the research aspect of the show. I have to say it didn't take me super long to write because I got a commission in March to write the first 10 minutes of the play. After that, that went well, so I decided I wanted to take it to Edinburgh Fringe. But to apply for Edinburgh Fringe, the deadline is kind of the start of April. So I only really had a couple of weeks. So I ended up applying just with an extract. So in terms of writing the first draft of the play and the first couple of drafts, all that was done within about a month or a few months.
I think you had an earlier run of it or a couple of performances in Manchester, is that right?
So I got commissioned by the Jewish Museum to perform the first full-length version of the show, and that was in May, end of May. And then after I did the Manchester Jewish Museum show, which was probably one of my favourite shows that I'd ever done of the play. It was in its roughest form. So that version was about an hour and 15, an hour and 20. And then I did it twice at the Greater Manchester Fringe.
So do you enjoy the process of developing a play, maybe doing performances of early versions and then taking the script further?
It's a really exciting process. I think it can be quite challenging, especially because I know I was quite attached to certain moments that we had to cut, just simply because our time slot in Edinburgh was an hour. And luckily it ran really well. We never ran over, and it was always very simple and easy. But I think I enjoy the development process. However, sometimes some of the enjoyment can be taken out of it when you know that you have to change something because of a logistical problem. So knowing it has to be a certain length of time. I don't know. I also liked working with kind of audience feedback and helping that kind of refine the play.
So you tell me about performing at Fringe. I know you brought a show, I think a couple of years ago, with a larger cast, but this time it was just you. How was that experience?
I think it was more difficult, to be perfectly honest. The first time I came to Fringe was 2022, and I had written a play that had won a funding prize that my university ran, and it meant that our cost was covered. And I wasn't performing in it. I'd just written that show. And there was a cast of 6, but we had a production team of about 9 people. It was huge. So there were 15 of us. And when my show was on, I was performing in another show at the same time that was a week. So they overlapped. So the show I'd written was 2 weeks and the show I was in was 1. I think this run was harder because I was doing the whole 4 weeks. And I do think it really does make a difference if you're in a group of people, in terms of it can be a lot less lonely. You can have someone to talk to after a show if you felt it didn't go as well as you wanted, or so you can kind of, you're not alone with any feelings that you have towards your show. Even though it was challenging kind of being in a in a big group 2 years ago. Yeah, I think this time around it was a bit lonelier, but in some ways it was also a greater challenge. So I think this was kind of the natural stepping stone for me.
Amy, how do you think we're doing in terms of new Jewish theatre?
Even though I'm in the world of Jewish theatre and a lot of the work I make is Jewish themes, it isn't always. So I feel like I'm not always completely in that world. And also being in Manchester, I think the amount of Jewish theatre you have is less than in London. So I feel that my exposure to it may be slightly less. I will say, I think from the work that I've been involved in and doing my own work and the positive response I've had, it feels like it is being embraced and that people want to hear diverse stories. One of my favourite shows that I saw at the Fringe was Revenge After Lavoya at Summer Hall, which was amazing. And they won Fringe first. They did so incredibly well. So I think that actually it seems to be looking up and it seems to be a lot more present, at least from where I'm sat. I've been seeing a lot more Jewish work coming out, at least in the last couple of years, compared to a few years ago when it was just, I mean, growing up, I don't remember seeing any Jewish contemporary theatre really. It was just Fiddler on the Roof and anything else? Probably not. Actually, there probably is, but I wasn't exposed to it. I think there's a lot of the Jewish work I do see is of kind of Jewish Ashkenazi stories or stories that maybe are more typical or more in mainstream media anyway. So I think that's something that maybe the theatre world could embrace more is Jewish stories that are of maybe different backgrounds that aren't just Ashkenazi, and embracing there's such a huge wealth of other stories.
Thank you, Amy, and wishing you great luck with your future writing and theatre making.
Thank you so much.
You have been listening to Old Lang Schmooze, an Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre podcast. The podcast was presented by Ella Lambert,
David Neville,
Adrian Harris,
Hannah Handelman, and of course all of the Festival Fringe performers who shared their thoughts in their interviews with David, with original music by Phil Alexander. To sign up to our newsletter and keep up to date with events online and live, go to www.jcc.scot.